Hi there, I'm Rob Hansen. I'm the creator of The Narrows, and this is True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to celebrate Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with Rob Hansen about his comic book The Narrows, #2, available through Kickstarter. Please like and subscribe to this website by hitting the subscribe button, so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Rob Hansen is an award-winning 30-year veteran of the graphic design, illustration, and marketing industries. He chiefly freelances within most creative areas and is the owner of Cheapo Comix, a small but mighty comic publisher. His previous work has included Chetwynd, a story about a teenage girl and her special protector, a vampire sasquatch. His current project continues the Narrows comic book series with the second issue. In the second issue of the Narrows comic book, Simon's backstory is revealed, but danger still exists in this dark fantasy comic set in Nova Scotia. Laura Wilson, suffering from PTSD due to her monstrous encounter last issue, has a crisis of faith in being involved with Simon's various paranormal endeavours. That is, until she can no longer avoid them. Both Simon in the past and Laura in the now will begin to explore their gifts in surprisingly similar ways. And that's a good thing because the past has a way of infecting the future. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Rob Hansen about his comic book The Narrows, #2, available through Kickstarter. So, Rob Hansen, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Thanks for agreeing to do this. It's awesome.
Absolutely. But before I get going with all the questions, I would like to know, what are you reading today?
Well, interestingly, I picked up like a 10-year-old volume called Witches, which which I saw. I'll stop saying it. Kind of through social media, I just saw an illustration from one of the panels and I was like, oh man, that looks really cool. Yeah, it's called Witches, I guess spelled Wytches, and it's a horror thing, which I read a lot of horror or dark fantasy, but this is definitely horror. And it's great, really great. So I'm reading that. I'm kind of following Something is Killing the Children, which is super fun. Trying to catch up on all the various BPRD things by Mignola. There's like a billion of them. And so, every time I see one that's like kind of cheap, I'll pick that up and read it. And then I also kind of went, in terms of like more of the superhero kind of angle, I've been rereading Planetary, which is a really interesting series. I think I read more books than I do comics right now.
Sure. Well, I'm glad you have the time to do it.
Yeah.
Some people, they just pile up on the floor around here, but hopefully I'll get to it at some point.
Well, it takes me quite a while to read a book. Well, so I listen to one when I'm drawing, but I'll read one at night before bed. It's gotten into be such a habit that, I'll read for maybe 15 minutes and then my reader will fall on my face or the book I'm reading will fall,
Well, it's a good habit to have. Sometimes reading is a good thing to send you off to Never Never Land, so to speak.
Yeah, works well for me anyway.
Cool. Well, we last met up last year at the Dartmouth Comic Arts Festival. So I got to ask you, how was that event for you?
So I love decaf. It is probably like for a one-day event, it's just on Sunday. It's one Sunday in the summer, usually in August. It's probably the most lucrative event I go to. And I think the reason for that is that it's free. So people come there not having to spend any money. And so families show up. And it's also connected to our ferry system here across from Halifax. So it's kind of a nice thing to do. You take ferry across from Halifax and you go to the Dartmouth side and you walk around this comic book thing and everyone knows everybody. We were a very small community of makers here. And the guy who runs it is Cal from Strange Adventures, one of the sort of more popular comic book stores here in Halifax. And they've been around forever. And everybody knows Cal, and it's his deal. He really likes to support indie local comic book makers, of which I kind of qualify. It's just a really good feel-good event that actually is lucrative. So yeah, I love it. It's my favorite one. It was the first one I ever did years ago, probably 6 or 7 years ago, maybe. And then yeah, I've been doing it ever since. It's just such a good feel-good thing. And because I've been doing it for so long now, I mean, I guess it's not that long, but long enough that I know pretty much everybody there. And, everybody wanders around. You take a break from your booth, right, and wander around. You say hi to the people who you haven't seen since last year. We have a local comic creators group here in Halifax, and lots of those people get involved with decaf as well. Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
stuff. So we're here talking about your latest book on Kickstarter called The Narrows, Issue 2. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the story. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Sure. So issue one kind of introduces you to the two main characters, Simon and Laura. Laura's a police officer, kind of young and wants to be a detective, and so she's pushing. Simon is older. Well, he's actually sort of immortal, kind of immortal, not exactly. So he's been around Halifax for a very, very long time. It's a story about Halifax, and it's a story that centers around the explosion, which happened in 1917. My version of the events that caused the explosion are completely different than what actually happened. So it's sort of around that. Simon was supposed to stop it for whatever reason, which I can't divulge. He didn't. He kind of pays the price, sort of mentally, for literally 100 years. In my mind, the explosion actually was kind of that opening between two worlds, and when you do that, things come through. And it's Simon's job to get rid of those things. I call them relics in the book. That was kind of issue one. And then issue two is a little more about Simon's backstory. So part of issue one, he's just a child in an orphanage. At the very end of it, he gets shunted off to a mentor. And that's kind of a pretty big character reveal at the end of issue one. Anyway, that mentor and that mentorship is what I kind of focus on in issue two. So a lot of it takes place in 1904, and a little bit of it takes place in the present day as well. One of the things about like writing and drawing and doing everything yourself is that you kind of have to separate who you are depending on what task you're doing. So when I'm writing, I don't really think about, oh man, I'm going to have to draw that. I just write it. So when the illustrator Rob steps in to draw the things that writer Rob has done, I often want to smack writer Rob
Right.
because, like you said, and everything in 1904, it's like, oh my God, I've got to draw spokes. I mean, everything had spokes in 1904. Yeah. So, and I try to do research, right? Like I'd like it to be kind of as accurate as I can be. So, I mean, given the fact that it's still fantasy, but like I try to make sure that, vehicles from around that time are similar and architecture is similar and clothing is similar. So I do a little bit of research. I also like history, so it's not a really big deal to do, but that's kind of a
Right.
rambling explanation about what it's
Okay.
about.
Cool. Now, you mentioned the Halifax explosion. Was that your inspiration for your story? It's like, what if? And then your mind just wandered after that, or how'd it go?
Absolutely. I just recently retired from my full-time college teaching gig, but I would drive across the bridge to the campus from Halifax to Dartmouth every day, twice a day. And that's right about where the Narrows is. It's a little closer to the opening of the harbor, really, than where the Narrows is, but you can see it. And I grew up in Ontario and moved here about 30 years ago. So oddly, I was never taught anything about the Halifax explosion in my history classes in high school or whatever. And then so you move here and then you hear about it. You're like, wow, that's interesting. And then as I get older, like a lot of men, I guess, I get more interested in history. So I'm driving across this bridge every day. And one day I was just like, yeah, the explosion was right over there. Geez, wonder what if exactly, right? Like just as you said, it's a what if thing. A lot of the things I write tend to come from that sort of standpoint.
Oh, okay. Now
Yeah.
you are promoting this book via Kickstarter. Wondering what methods are you using to market yourself and the book and get the word out.
Well, luckily, I'm not asking for a ton of money. So, and the reason why I do a Kickstarter campaign is primarily so I know how many to print. I don't want to warehouse a whole bunch of comic books. I just don't want to. So that's the reason why I'm doing a Kickstarter. And I use social media, and I have a background in marketing and advertising. But before I started teaching, I was a senior art director at an advertising firm here. And so it's really kind of fun to do your own marketing. No one is saying that's a dumb idea, Rob. So I just do it. And most of the time that's good, but not all the time. Because like my other comic book, Chetwynd, is about a 400-pound, 8-foot tall vampiric Sasquatch. And years ago, my wife gave me a Sasquatch costume for, I think, my birthday. years ago. So that came in handy when I was marketing that, right? But again, I just do dumb things. So I'll, walk around the city or I'll take video and make it black and white. And then I've got some background in this stuff, so I can mess with it a little bit and add music. But mostly what I do is I use social media, and I have a pretty decent network of people, partly because I was a teacher for so many years, and the students are, my grads are like, oh, Rob's got a comic book out. I should, check that out. Usually you don't have to do a lot, but it's the stuff that I like to do anyway. So
That's
it's kind of
good.
fun.
We're talking about issue number 2. Can people still get issue number 1 of the Narrows?
Absolutely. Yeah. On my website, Cheapo Comix, Comix.com, you can get number 1. And actually, the Kickstarter campaign includes an add-on if you didn't get number 1 and you'd like to support number 2 as well. You can do that. And the website works. I tested it. I had recently had to migrate to somewhere else, and that was painful. It's there and it works. So yeah, cheapocomix.com. That's where I do any kind of sales, unless you bump into me on the street, because sometimes I actually have a copy on me, just because I do a lot of drawing in cafes and bars sometimes, just because it's fun. Like it's a neat thing to do, just to be around people a little bit. Writing and illustrating is a pretty solo thing to do. And so it's nice to have people, just humanity around a little bit. But every so often, especially in bars, people that seem to be a little more open to asking questions in there. In bars, coffee shops, they'll leave you alone to work. But get 2 beers in someone, and then they're going to go and say, what is that weird white-haired dude doing in the corner with his iPad? I usually have one on me, just because someone will go, what are you doing? I'm making these, and I can show it to them.
Right. This book is being offered on Kickstarter. I wonder if you could talk about some of the incentive that's you're offering backers.
I tried to keep the reward tiers a little simpler this time. I've got a digital version of the comic book. I've got the physical version of the comic book. I got a couple of tests done. It looks great. I mean, that's weird for me to say. It takes me 3 years to make the darn things. So by the time I actually get one in my hands, I'm almost surprised. Every time I'm kind of like, oh yeah, it looks pretty good. So I've got physical copies of the comic. It's 60 pages. It's a little bit beefier than your average comic book, I guess. I kind of wanted a dad baseball hat with the Narrows on it, kind of wanted one for a while now. So there's a tier where you can get an embroidered The Narrows baseball hat, just because I wanted one. And then the ultimate ultra mega tier is a custom comic book cover. So you can choose a romance comic, like a vintage kind of romance comic or a horror comic or a superhero comic, and I will put your face and general body type into that scene. That's the top tier. And of course, with every tier, you get the comic and you get the digital, and the final one, you would get the hat as well. Yeah. So I kept it pretty simple this time. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking about the Narrows number 2. I'm wondering, can you talk about what's next? Is there anything on your drawing table that you can talk about?
Sure. I freelance fairly regularly as an illustrator. Kind of recently more involved in the gaming world, kind of D&D stuff. So I'm busy doing that kind of quite a bit. But comic book wise, my plan is to actually jump back into Chetwynd, because I miss drawing that 400-pound, 8-foot tall vampiric Sasquatch. He's really fun to draw. The next thing I plan to do comic wise is Chetwynd number 3. I've started writing that. I don't actually plan to do a lot of dialogue in it. I kind of wanted to make like a 32-page fight scene. It's kind of what I wanted to try and do. Just a massive brawl. Just because I'm tired of drawing people sitting around talking. People sitting in cars, talking about their lives is like, that's interesting from a story point of view, but man, when you want to draw things, I want to draw a giant purple bloody mess. That's my next comic book endeavor anyway, yeah.
Great. We started talking about the Dartmouth Comic Arts Festival. Wondering if you have any plans lined up for later this year for any events or festivals.
I just noticed that Ottawa has a comic arts festival for, I think, the first time ever. And my hometown is Ottawa, and I still have some family there and some friends. I was thinking I might do that. I got into a new one called TriCon here, which is happening in May, I believe. A couple of years ago, I did some other places. I went to just local Maritimes. I went to Moncton and I went to Fredericton, and they didn't. I don't know. It was like I would break even, kind of, with the expenses of hotel room and all that stuff. But it's like I don't have this, like the number of books behind me yet to really kind of sell. So staying local really seems to work for me. So I'm definitely going to do decaf. I'm going to do HalCon. I got in last year, but then I had surgery and I had to stop, which is a pain. I had to cancel it. So this year I'm going to apply to HalCon again, and I'll likely get into that. And HalCon is like our biggest local con down here in Halifax. It's long. It starts on a Friday night and ends on Sunday, so it's quite a lot of work, but it's a good one. And it's a good one to be visible in. So at least 3 local ones here. As I mentioned, I'm just recently retired, so I have a lot more time. So I'll probably hit a few more if I find the time. I have the time. It's just a matter of like kind of doing it. I've got a system now, so it's not that hard. You just put the stuff in boxes and set it up and it's good.
So with everything you have on the go today and in the future, where do you recommend people go online to find out more about you?
Instagram is where I post everything. Yeah, if you look for @SpiderRobbie, that's where I post anything. Like, so if I'm doing stuff for D&D, it's on there. Promos for the Narrows and working stuff is on there. Pretty much everything I'm kind of doing artistically shows up on Instagram. CheapoComix.com is my website, and that's where you can buy stuff, and you can get to that through a link tree in the Instagram. That's kind of where I do things. Yeah.
Well,
Bump
Rob,
into me in a bar and talk to me. That'll work.
Rob, those are all the questions I have for you. But I'm wondering, is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
Just, I guess, to say that, I'm lucky. I love doing this. I don't do this for money. When I price the comics, I price them I don't make any money on them. I do it because I love it, and it's fun. I love telling the stories, and I like making comics. It's a real labor of love. For sure. It's a thankless job in a lot of ways, except for things like this. When someone says, hey, you want to be on my podcast? It's a good thing to do. If you're thinking of starting or wondering if you wanted to make a comic book or how to make one, just start. Take every day. Do something every day, and you'll get it done. My big thing is finished, not perfect. Let's just get it done. I look through it and go, oh, man, I could go back and fix that panel. But, just get her done and get it out there, and then start working on the next one.
Thanks to Rob for the chat. You can discover more about Rob Hansen online at cheapocomix.com, and that's comics with an X, and on Instagram at SpiderRobbie. And thank you for tuning in to the True North Country Comics podcast. I invite you to visit the True North Country Comics website to listen to more conversations about creators' insight on making comic books and graphic novels. I also encourage you to subscribe via the website so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. You can follow along True North Country Comics on most social media sites, and you're encouraged to send any and all feedback to John at truenorthcountrycomics.com. Thanks for tuning in, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2026.